What's up, everybody? How's it going tonight? Today? Tonight? Whatever it may be where you're at. I'm going to make this is going to be a multifaceted video where I'm going to talk about a variety of subjects because I haven't made one in a couple days. I've been busy. I spent all day yesterday cleaning up the garage with my wife, and we organized all of my random tools and things that were, let's just say, you know, garages are the last thing you want to deal with organizing, especially as a carpenter and an artist where I've got tons of stuff. But every single last thing of mine pretty much was organized. And I finished up today going through my electronics. And so, anyway, to kind of give an outline of what this video is going to talk about, I'm going to talk about gene editing and CRISPR. I'm going to talk about dreams and lucid dreaming and how it helps us to process information. Then I'm going to talk about the Declaration of Independence, or rather the rights we should have as a human, and weapons. Weapons, yes. I want to talk about weapons for a minute. So, to get to the video here, first off, I want to talk about dreams. I've always been fascinated with lucid dreaming. I have about 7 or 8 years ago, I got very interested in lucid dreaming. I bought a book. It was called The Art of Dreaming by Carlos Castaneda. And after that, I got interested and I read another one. It was called The Dream... I can't remember what it was called. I have it in there somewhere. It's a big, thick book about lucid dreaming and how to lucid dream, basically. So every night I would practice reading the book, go to sleep. Sometimes I'd wake up at like 5 in the morning, read for 20 minutes or something. Back then my wife was getting ready for work really early, so she gets up one morning and I wake up with her and I'm read this book, then go back to sleep. It allows you to go into your final stage of REM sleep, and then you can have a much more vivid dream that you can remember. And the most fascinating thing is, if you've never had a lucid dream where you're aware that you're dreaming, then you wouldn't understand, and there's not much I can say to explain it to you. But even if you have had one, there's a difference between all of a sudden in a dream realizing that you're dreaming and what I consider a fully active participatory lucid dream, where you can point and manifest something or decide to climb up on a roof and fly. And I, for a period of months, you know, would study it constantly. And at least once or twice a week I'd have a lucid dream where, and I gradually learned how to fly farther and farther. And I gradually learned how to, the first time I had one, I said, I'm going to manifest something on that table, and it appeared. So the interesting thing, and the reason why I brought this up, is because it's such an amazing experience when you become lucid in a dream that you will often lose it. You'll wake up. So when you practice lucid dreaming, just because you become aware in a dream doesn't mean you can maintain it or handle it or control it. So it takes a lot of people, they have a practice where they will look at their hands or something else throughout the day to ask themselves, am I awake? Am I awake? And by doing this, you're training your brain to continuously do a reality check. Then when you're sleeping, you will have, if you have the same experience, you might look at your hands and they look different. And then you will know you're in a dream. Because it's harder than you might think to realize you're in a dream. But then some people get really excited. So for me in my dream, and then they'll wake up, realizing, oh my God, I'm dreaming, and they wake up. For me, I would just stare straight forward at whatever I'm looking at in my dream, and then calmly take breaths, and then, okay, now I go about my way. It's almost like you realize that there's a whole bunch of sleeping wild animals around you, and you just calmly go along your way. Don't disturb anything. Don't mess with the dream world. It sounds crazy, but so anyhow, the question I had was, since you become lucid in your dreams, and it's so much more hyper-real than this reality. I mean, it is very real. It made me wonder if there's a similar state of mind mankind can achieve through any type of enlightenment or awareness, which would allow you to see that this is, to become lucid within this dream, even though this is reality, if that makes sense. Which leads me, I guess, into the AI part of it, which is, I've been thinking about this idea of artificial intelligence for a long time, and whether it can become conscious, and what you would consider to be something that's alive. And I came to this realization that any species which advanced far enough to develop AI would eventually realize that biology really has to step up on technology, on having to use circuit boards and metals. If you can create a biological creation that can replicate itself, then it would be the ultimate in AI, which is basically, if you consider it, what humans are. And so the question that I had was whether or not humans or creatures, you know, animals, life on Earth in general, was artificially created in that sense. It doesn't answer the larger question of what created that and what created that. It gets into some very existential shit that, you know, I don't even want to go into right now. But with what's going on right now with CRISPR, CRISPR, for those who don't know, is a gene editing tool, which basically before, if we could go in with a hatchet and chop out chunks of genes, now we can go in with a chainsaw, you know, now we can go in with a scalpel or a fine needle point and actually pick out specific genes by using nature's tools to do the work for us. And you can literally edit out certain parts of the gene you don't want or in. And so I think it was Mattis, or no, it was one of the, you know, top military guys last year said that one of the top 6 threats to national security is gene editing, which surprised a lot of people because it was the only one that had anything to do with science, you know, like you know, that type of technology and health. If you have the right tools and the right will, you could edit down genes or edit down viruses using specific, you know, coding to, just like a computer, code a virus to be resistant to anything you throw at it. And that's what a lot of people are afraid of. So it was just an interesting thing I came across. One thing before I go on the dream issue is I wanted to say that the one interesting thing about dreams is that people who can't walk or have never walked have dreams that they're walking. People who have never seen have dreams that they see. People who are deaf or have been deaf forever have dreams that they can hear. And so therefore, there's a theory that dreams are a type of proto-consciousness, if you will, that exists within us all. That it's not just pictures we receive about our lives, but rather dreams are something that we would have regardless of whether we had experiences in our own life or not. That it's kind of the mental framework with which we work upon. So even though a person can't walk, they might have dreams that they walk, and you might think, well, that's because they're dreaming that they can walk, but you know, not dreaming, literally dreaming, but you know, having that, oh man, that would be great to walk, and having that hope and desire, so they dream about it. But I think it's more than that. It seems to be that our brains have almost like a neural imprint of certain patterns that we inherit through our genetics, epigenetics, if you will, that every experience we have runs through our minds, whether there are experiences or not. And it would be like threat simulation, and that's what dreams tend to be. You know, a large majority of dreams tend to be not necessarily nightmares, but somewhat negative to people. Last night I had a dream that I was on this, I was hiking, I was either hiking, driving, biking, whatever it might be, it didn't matter, coming up to the top of this hill. And as I came over the hill, everybody I was with just disappeared, and it was just me on this surfboard. And I looked down, and it was this hill that must have gone down several miles, and then came up on the other side of the valley, except for it wasn't a road anymore, it was an ocean. And it was the biggest fucking wave that you've ever seen in your life. And I was like, holy shit. And it was the funniest thing, because I rode down, and I was just like, gotta go with it. And I started to realize I was dreaming. And I passed this like surfer dude, and he looks at me and he goes, right on, man, stick to the Zorb, that's what I do. And because I was riding along this edge, and he called it the Zorb. And in my mind, in the dream, I knew that he meant the region where the water is absorbed into the sand. It seemed to have a better surfing area, and that whole thing just went over in my mind all day. Like, I'm creating not just ideas and pictures in my mind, but coming up with fucking slang terms in my mind. What is going on in the back of your head that allows you to have these dreams that make you feel smarter than you do in your daily life, if that makes sense? It sounds crazy, but, you know, some of the things that I've seen in my dreams, I'm like, you know, why can't I come up with freaking amazing ideas like that, you know, when I'm awake? But so that's about dreams. The next part I want to talk about, I guess I'll talk about cassette tapes briefly, because I wanted to mention that. This is Foreigner. It's an album I got. It was probably one of the first... Oh, no, this one's Jimi Hendrix. I had Foreigner over here, too. Some of the first cassette tapes I ever got. The Foreigner one I got in my stocking when I was like 9 years old. And I had these cassette tapes for decades. And then, a few years back, I made this. I go to the regional Burning Man. Most states have a regional burn. And I go every year to the one in Oregon for like the last 9-10 years. And a few years back, I decided to make a shirt out of cassette tapes, because I wanted to make something weird. People wear all kinds of funky outfits. Since then, it's fallen apart. But as you can see, I had a shirt completely covered with cassette tapes. I wore it one night, tripping balls, fell down on this hill, and I was laying there thinking, oh man, this is the most uncomfortable shirt I've ever worn. But for the novelty of it, I wore it. Well, about 5 years ago, I made a video about my tapes, and it was called What Do I Do With My Cassette Tapes? And I had them all stacked up in piles, and my kids were playing with them. And I had a couple people really get upset on the video. They're like, I can't believe you're destroying your cassette tapes. You know, like, send them to me. I'll use them. Those are worth something. And looking back in retrospect, I guess I felt a little silly for, you know, ruining them. But at the same time, if you'd been carrying around tapes for 30 years and you knew that it was an outdated format, you know, what do you do with it? So anyhow, a couple weeks ago, I went down to help some family, my wife's family, and he gave me a tape deck as I was leaving. They asked if I wanted this tape deck. And I hadn't really had a decent one in a while, so I grabbed it and I started playing tapes. Every single tape I play on that thing sounds absolutely crisp and phenomenal. So the other day I was playing Hendrix or something, and I decided to go on YouTube, and I would go back and forth between the cassette tape and the YouTube version. And most of the, you know, online MP3 type versions are, they seem to be a little more high-pitched, but there's a lot of remastered versions, which are far superior to a gargly sounding tape, the image I had in my mind. But the truth is, the tapes, considering I had them for 30 years, threw them in buckets and boxes, they sat in less than ideal conditions. Then I put them on a shirt and wore them to an event for a weekend, and tripped on acid walking around with them on a shirt. Then I peeled off the glue, and then stuck it in the tape player, and it worked great. Thought, you know, tapes were pretty badass. And the beauty is that you can always record over them if you want to. So, a lot of the ones I have done that, and recorded over them with a bunch of my friends and I doing random things when we were younger. So, anyway, those are my thoughts on tapes, and I wanted to move on to my next part of the video. Now I was going to talk about the Declaration of Independence, as well as our Bill of Rights, and I have a bunch of highlighted stuff, but I'm not going to do that. I'll put it in a separate video. This is a Declaration of Independence that's printed on blotter paper. Same stuff that's used for, you know, LSD. It was bought, a friend of mine bought it for me online somewhere, so no, it's not acid, but you could dip it in acid if you wanted to. I guess you could have a declaration party. But I started thinking about our rights and all our constitutional rights, and I just, nope, I just totally lost interest in it. You know, I just don't even want to talk about these things because it just brings up so many negative emotions and upsets people, and they start getting all pissed off about their rights. And it really comes down to rights as a human. But I do want to talk about the last thing I was going to mention, which is weapons. And what inspired me was just this little pile of handcuffs. Something as simple as handcuffs. If you've ever been in handcuffs, and you've ever been locked up, you know how horrible it is to feel like you can't move, to feel like you're trapped, and that no matter what happens, you can't escape. If the apocalypse comes tomorrow right now, I can head up under the hills. If the apocalypse comes in jail, you just sit there and rot. You know, anything could happen at any time. But this is a symbol of what we consider to be the best way to grab people and put them away, out of sight, out of mind. What really inspired me to make this video wasn't even guns or knives like this particular one, which is, I call the Bear Killer. This is from 2004. I like engraved it and stuff. And it's not a fancy knife by any means, but it would definitely kill something, a bear that came after me. So I said, I'm going to get you, bear. It says something like that on it. But the truth is, this right here, this is a billy club that I inherited. It was my wife's dad's, might have been his dad's, who knows where it came from. It's leather covering a lead core, I believe. They used lead a lot of the time in these. And this was an actual, I believe, a policed baton from the 20s or 30s. And you can tell that it's had a few strikes. It's definitely got some use. Probably from men going, yeah, I'm going to hit stuff with it. But it really got me thinking, you know, I've never harmed anybody in my life. Except for a guy who was picking on me in 7th or 8th grade. And I pushed him up against the wall because he wouldn't leave me alone. So I did take first physical, you know, attack. Then he punched me, and then I beat the shit out of him, and the rest is history. I guess we kind of beat the shit out of each other. We had an altercation. We got over it. We were, you know, we ended up talking in the end. Nobody was seriously harmed. I've never used a weapon on anyone, nor have I had any intention to do so, nor would I want to. And I would do everything I could to stay away from it. I've had several altercations where I've talked my way out of fights where I could have easily got my ass kicked or beaten or killed. But often it's because somebody's really upset about something else and you just piss them off the wrong way. And I'm a cynical asshole sometimes. And if I see somebody acting like a dick, I always speak up. I can't help it. It's just the person I am. And sometimes I've thought, you know, I should just mind my own business. But then I realize that is my business. If somebody's harassing someone else or they're making a scene where everybody else is suffering because of it, I'll be the one to say, get the fuck out of here. But not to fight them. And that's the difference. A lot of people are looking for a confrontation. I'm just looking to avoid confrontations, so I end up being the bad guy who is the good guy in a way, that trying to, you know, stop trouble, but at the same time, I have kind of a cynical, sarcastic nature to me. And what inspired me to talk about violence and about weapons? I just got done watching 2 seasons of The Punisher on Netflix. I started a few days ago, and I kind of, one day I wasn't feeling well, so I kind of binge watched like the whole first season. And by the time I was done, I thought, why am I watching this? This is not just gratuitous violence. It's some of the most hardcore, vulgar violence I've ever seen. Now, it's not, there's a difference. I've seen plenty of zombie movies and horror movies where it was just blood and gore everywhere. You can't overdo it with blood and expect that to be shocking. It just doesn't work. You can throw barrels of the shit around and it doesn't work. There has to be not just the blood itself, but the emotion behind the person who is being beaten, the person who is doing the beating, the types of weapons being used, and just how true it seems. And I asked myself, why am I watching this violence? Why am I watching the Punisher beat the shit out of people? And I realized it's because the people are assholes, but that's still not a justification. And so I realized, well, partially it's my, you know, maybe it's my nature of being male. You know, maybe it has a little bit to do with knowing so many people have got away with such horrific acts, and knowing that the justice system is completely broken, that I've always been on not the bad guys' side, but the vigilantes' side. And I've always supported vigilantes. Maybe because there are certain people out there who really believe and really are above the law. People who can say, the law can't touch me, I've got him in my pocket. And then you picture this one random guy who had his family killed, Frank Castle, you know, the Punisher, who really has his own code of ethics, but has no standard on who he will or won't, what laws he follows. He just does what he does. And you think, maybe there's a deeper metaphor for that, you know? Maybe there's a deeper reason why that's so appealing for a lot of us. It's because we've seen people who can just get around the system, game the system, just pretend like it doesn't even matter, you know, roll right over people, take advantage of everybody, and if you get caught, buy your way out of jail. Don't worry about speeding, you can buy your way out of tickets. Don't worry about anything. I got diplomatic immunity, you know, I'm untouchable. And there haven't been any real vigilantes. And I think that we know of. And I think this is why, say, Anonymous was so appealing to a lot of people. Here we have a group of people who can call themselves anonymous, who are hackers, who say, we're going to collectively stop tyranny by, you know, tapping into people's computers, to hacking into people's stuff, and to exposing, you know, bullshit, to, you know, showing the fraud, and to whistleblowing on all the corruption. And I made a video where I mentioned that at the end of the video. I said, look at what happened to Anonymous, and somebody asked, well, what do you mean by that? And it was just that they started out really with noble intentions, and now if you go to any one of the Anonymous official website or YouTube channel, it's about some planet in another galaxy that has a shield around it, or some alien conspiracy, basically just facepalm stuff. Titles like, watch this quick before it's deleted, and you think, man, it sucks. The whole world's gone to clickbait. Where are all the fucking heroes? Where are all the heroes? You know, and that's what I ask. A lot of people would like to think the soldiers are the heroes, but they're fighting for somebody else's cause. You know, where are the heroes that are fighting for the common man? You know, common decency. I guess we're all heroes in our own way, but sometimes I feel like we do need more vigilantes. And that's why it's kind of a conundrum, a cognitive dissonance and ambivalence about life, wondering, am I such a peaceful person, yet I love to see people get their asses kicked for the right reasons. It's because you have to set an example, you know. But I don't want to set the example. I'll let somebody else do it. I'm not a violent person. That said, if somebody came at my family, which was the situation with the Punisher, they killed his family. And I thought about this hard. I thought, if I had nothing left to lose, and somebody did that to my family, nothing would stop me. I would have absolutely no more, you know, value of just, well, let's just let the system work itself out, you know. If somebody who killed my family got away with it because they were gaming the system and the system was appealing to that, then I don't know what I'd do. Yeah, I don't know. So that's about all I've got. I'm going to go now. Talked about pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. I was going to mention the whole, you know, I had the whole list of amendments here. It was just these, like I said, I wasn't going to talk about this, but, you know, the whole idea of we shouldn't be deprived of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Basically, you know, illegal searches and seizures, and the way that the system is fucked. The justice system allows people to get taken advantage of, citizens who work their asses off, and it's imperfect. But I don't sit and dwell on it, think about it, but it's just something that I always consider, you know. You can't be passive. But if you spend your life being aggressive about the way things are, you're just going to fade away. And you're just going to lose it, you know. So, I guess that's it. I'll talk to y'all later. It was too long of a rambling video. I'll talk to y'all later. And,